Alright, welcome back, Mark Surgeon again, and today we will add a Morpher modifier to this frog. Let me delete the previous one, and we will create some morph targets for the facial animation. So first of all, we have to have some kind of a base. I will show a few variations on how to mirror your morph target, because it needs some clarification, because it's not that easy as it looks at first. But we will go through the morph target creation and how to add the morph targets in this lesson. Okay, so as you see, skinning is turned off. So visibility is turned off. Let me turn it back on. Usually this is your default situation, so let me save this. This is what happens when you make a copy of this model, and because we need a copy, we have to make it, something odd will happen. So let me select the both eyes, so two eyes are selected and the body is selected too. So let me show the wireframe, and shift and drag and copy it in the front view, and this is what happens. At the moment when you click OK, the figure will snap back to its original state. Alright, the reason is the skin modifier is still active, so it bonds the mesh to the bones. To quickly get rid of this problem, we can press Alt Q to isolate the model, isolate the selection, select just the body, and right click, remove, delete the modifier. Okay, and then the body, the mesh will snap to its new position. Okay, so that's what we are looking for. Alright, we still have some issues with the eyes, because these eyes are copied but the target is not. So these eyes are exactly looking at the same orientation as previously, which one is a little bit odd for now. So to get rid of the look at constraint, what you need to do is select the eyeball and go to the modify motion panel here, and be careful, because the look at constraint is a rotational type of constraint. It doesn't affect move, it doesn't affect position, it affects only rotation. So you have to have this rotation mode active, and then you can select look at and then hit delete. Select the opposite and select look at as a constraint and delete it. And now we have a new model. Let me exit from isolation mode. So here we go. This is an exact copy of the previous one. So technically it's the same, it's just not skinned, and we have no look at constraint. Okay, so this will be our base. Alright, we don't want to hurt this guy, we don't want to edit this. We will keep it as a reference, and anytime if we want to make a copy, we're just selecting these, and we don't have to go through all the process and removing, deleting, and whatever. You might ask, if we want to modify the expressions of the frog, why do we care about the eyeballs? Because eyeballs are needed to create a nice blink. These are needed to create a quite effective smile and other details. Okay, now regarding to naming, once you have, you can keep it as it is if you wish, but I like to rename it as short as possible. So it will be FR and M as a morph and underscore, and it will be base. Alright, so that's just a hint. I don't want to modify this. It is just a base mesh. We don't want to override it. So let me select this again, and we will create a smile. So choose copy. Instead of base, it will be smile and R. Okay, hit OK. That's right. And now I'm ready to make a change here. So this will be only one side. Alright, so the smile will happen only on the right side. The reason is smile is rarely symmetrical perfectly. So there's always a dominant face side, and usually the speed is a little bit different. A part of the face is a little bit faster. The smile starts a little bit sooner, instead of make it absolutely symmetrical. It's much more natural if you have the ability to control a smile independently. So right side, left side, and this will be the same with the sadness. Okay, we will use sculpting tools for this. Sculpting tools are available from the ribbon, so toggle ribbon is activated. And if you don't see the extended ribbon, probably it's minimized. So here's this little tiny button you can hit. This is the minimized version. And if you want to go back, you don't see your full ribbon, only partials. Then you have to go, show full ribbon, wait a few sec, still waiting, okay, and then it appeared. So it takes some time. Alright, now, so the tools I like to use is the Shift tool. The Shift tool and many other tools here are just great basic sculpting tools. But the Shift tool, the default setting of the Shift tool, is kind of a depth independent. It's like a magic wand type of a beam. So when you start using this, this is what may happen. So you are thinking that you are affecting only a part of the eyebrow, but instead you're actually collapsing the head all the way through. This is happening because this brush we have is kind of a doesn't sense in depth, so it goes through all the way. To switch that, we have to go to Shift Options, and the brush effects depth will be switched over to spherical radius. So spherical radius means, okay, it is just a partial. So now I'm affecting only what is under my brush and not what is behind my brush. Okay, so under, spherical radius, behind, and everything is the depth option. Okay, now I don't want to modify the eyebrows now. I want to start with a simple thing, with a smile. So the closer I am, the brush will be smaller relative to the model size. So let me zoom out a bit, and then pulling up this area a bit, and then let it go. Okay, I don't want to be too aggressive, just make sure that there is a smile and it works nice. Okay, if you want to modify many things, you can try to use the Shift Rotate. So Shift Rotate is working great. Let me drag my mouse. I'm using a mouse now, so it's not a pen. So this rotation helps a lot to make it a little bit more natural, and not just an upward movement, to make it a little bit more rounded movement, more physically accurate. Okay, let me right click to exit from the smooth, turn off F4 and compare the two. So this is the original state, this is the neutral facial expression, this is the smile. I don't think it's the final smile, but it is a progression towards a smile. Okay, so let me select the guy. Here we go, here it is, here's the main model. So skin is there. We need another modifier that can actually load and keep this morph target in memory. So skin is selected, and above the skin modifier list will lend us where it is, Morpher. So Morpher modifier, and it's on top of skin, but honestly, you don't want to keep it on top of the skin, but you want to create it. So it's created above skin, but once you have it, drag it under the skin. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, channels are empty, but we have 100 of these empty channels. We have to load the targets into these channels. So this will act as the base model, and every variation will be loaded into separate channels. Okay, so let me load the first. It's a little bit longer, so let me walk down here. We can load multiple targets if we have. We can reload all morph targets if we made small changes. Or we can animate a 0 channel key for everything. Later on, we might use that. But right now we have a channel number 1 that's empty. The channel is active, by the way. And we can pick an object from scene. So let me load this. picking the object, and right now nothing happens. So, but the model is already there, and if you're not sure, you just have to check the channel name. Now it's switched over to the to respect the target's name. Okay, so this value is 0. If you just drag the slider, let me isolate the model because that Alt Q was used. Okay, so this is what happens. We have a nice smile going on. From 0 to 100%, we have this lovely smile. If you want to zero out, quickly return this value to 0. Don't forget, you just have to go in and press a right click on the spinners. Okay, so that's 0. Now, how cool is that? We can move forward. By the way, this is just a one level smile. If you want to fine-tune the smile, there is something called progression or morph. Progressions and morphs are nothing else, just a chain of morph steps. So instead of using A to B, we can use A, B, C, D, and whatever number you want. Usually 2 or 3 steps are enough, but it's up to you. It's depending on the actual thing you're going after. Okay, so let me select the guy and notice the reason. We are copying always the original. So the first base was converted and copied from the original. We want to make these identical. Okay, so these are technically identical. This is why I have this base model. You cannot load a morph target that was modified. Okay, let me demonstrate this before we are moving on with the progression. So here we are. Let me shift drag, copy it, and for example, let me just make a change, like make a smile here, or just drag a point, drag a few points here. Okay, this is really ugly, but if I want, I can load it here. But when I'm adding a modifier on top of it, for example, let me add a symmetry modifier and make it symmetrical this way. Okay, then nothing happened. It is just a new modifier. This model is not the same as this one anymore, just because I was using that particular modifier. So symmetry, mirror, these things may not work with the Morpher modifier. So this is what happens. Here's a new channel. I'm walking down to pick object from scene, and I'm trying to click on this object, but it's not available. Okay, it's not available because it's not compatible, because I was using the symmetry. All right, so this is why we don't want to use modifiers in this particular case, and don't want to modify them this way. So we want to keep the originality of the mesh. All right, let me exit from here. Let me delete this model and going back to my second progression, vertex mode, and let me select the shift again, zooming in, and I want to emphasize this smile. Okay, let me drag this out. All right, so drag it. Yeah, he's really smiling. Okay, just move it up this to probably here. There's also tiny stretches going on here, so the smile is really rolling over the skull. Okay, so please keep that in mind. We have an underlying structure. We have bones and muscles in a living creature, so the skin is following the shape. It's like hovering over the muscles and the shapes and everything. So this is why we are looking for the nice versions. So let me show you the variations. So here we have neutral, here we have smile level 1, and here it is smile level 2. Okay, so I will just rename this smile level 2, smile R2, and going up back here at the Morpher modifier, and here's the trick. The original channel is selected. This is called smile R. We're walking down, And we have this pick object from scene, but what else we have? We have a progressive morph kind of a chamber. So right now there's only one target, but if we are adding more, same channel is active, pick object from scene, the same process as we did previous time. Clicking on here, it will be automatically added to this list. So we have Smile R, the first one, and we have Smile R2. So when the first one is selected, you will see a target percentage here, that's 50%. That means from 0 to 50%, this is the rule. This is the ruling for target. So it will be performed from 0 to 50. But once you pass 50, the Smile R2 will take over, and from 50 to 100%, it will be used. So let me isolate the model and go up on the list and use this spinner, and from 0 to 50, this is the first stage, and from the first stage we have this 100. Okay, right? So it can give you a little bit more natural kind of change in look and everything. Okay, now let me go back and zero this out, leave the isolation mode, and now here comes the big question. So what do we need to do if we want to mirror our settings? So for example, we have the right side, but what happens if we actually need the left side to be the exact same model as these? Now, so a proper solution is a little bit complex. Let me start on the easy side. So theoretically, what you can do is select the first model, make a copy, or not, just select the level one, make a copy of it, and let me rename this guy instantly to Smile R, Smile Left, sorry, Smile L, Smile Left. This is still a right-sided smile. We would just want to mirror this expression to the left side. For that, we can use the modeling tool. Within the modeling, there is a polygon modeling section. You can roll that out, and be careful, you have to have the model selected. Otherwise, you will see these tools as grayed out. So if you don't have the tool model selected, polygon modeling, nothing is available. So you have to have an editable poly selected, and go to Symmetry tools. And let me move it over and close this polygon modeling, and this is what happens. These symmetry tools will actually help you to mirror, flip the symmetry. So for that, it has to have a reference that is loaded inside the tool. So pick main model, I'm clicking on the head, it will just recognize, okay, we have this base. This is why I like to call it a base, because it's acting like as a reference. And now we have this kind of a functional base, and it will be calculated. The differences will be calculated judged on the base. So let me hit on Flip Symmetry, and now I have this flipped model. Now here comes the big question. So if you take a look, we have a few errors. Can you see those? So a few vertices were a bit off on both sides. Okay, it is a fairly annoying thing. Actually, you can repair it by dragging and moving it aside. So you can do that, but it is still a little bit time consuming. Alright, so let me drag this. Probably direction, horizontal direction is also a little bit off. Let me try to find the right way, and then I will show you another method that might work as well. So pull it up. I'm just eyeballing this. It's not the nicest if you do it just by eye, but at least it's fairly fast and reliable. Okay, here we have this tiny point. I know it's not easy, so if you choose this way, you have to take a deep breath before jumping in and try to fix these vertices manually. But I will go through this for now, because if you are following me, it will be easier if you see the same process. So I'm using F3, function key 3, every time to make this model a little bit more see-through, so wire mode. And rotation is key. So if you don't rotate your model, it's really hard to recognize where you are in the 3D space. So don't forget, 3D is nothing if you have a still image. So if I don't rotate around this model, it's actually just any other 2D image. So I have to have this function to move things around, because that will give me the real illusion of 3D. Okay, it's so true for modeling, and every software, it is a key knowledge to make it model and rotate it to make it more accurate. Okay, here we go. So now we have it fixed. This is smile left. Okay, nice. It's nice and cool. Okay, but what else we can do? So if it's not working perfectly, what is the other option? What we can do is we can do the other way with this particular model. So this is the smile R, and my goal is to create a right side, a mirror of this right side as a left level 2. So I will not copy this time. I will go here back to this original model, turn off the skin. So turning off the skin, and make a copy now. So shift and drag, make a copy. Because I was turning off the skin, there was no need to remove the skin modifier, so right away. Alright, now I can just remove it. It's a little bit easier, I don't have to isolate. But please note that the Morpher is still there. The Morpher modifier is still there. Now, this will be, let me tell you, let me rename this reference. So reference, smile left. Okay, so that will be my reference. So it is a temporary model. So let me isolate it back, and I want to make a duplicate of this model. So duplicate, smile R is set to 0. I will press Ctrl V to duplicate it. It will be a copy, and this will be the exact name. So FRM as morph, and smile L, and smile L2 because it's level 2. Alright, now what happens is I will delete the Morpher modifier from this. Right click and delete. So it is a plain model. This plain model will be used as a cover model. So let me just quickly, just temporarily, let me move this away. So we have two models here. One is the blank smile L2, and this one is the original with the Morpher and everything. So what I will do, let me undo this to make sure that these models are exactly in the same position. Let me select the reference. Sometimes you have to click and click again, and then it will select the model below. So we have this Morpher, and before we are actually using the mirror, before we are actually start using the Morpher, we need to mirror this. No clone, nothing will happen. Only thing will happen is actually it's a structural mirror. So when I'm hitting OK, this model is the same, but right now when I start dragging the slider, this will be performed. So this is underlying. So, but what you have to recognize that this is on the left side. Okay, so this is on the left side because I've just mirrored the model. Okay, let me go back to 0. And let me select the original, the FRM Smile Level 2 model, add a skin wrap modifier on top of it. Skin wrap modifier is it is capable to copy the underlying mesh's change. So I have to click add, click on the model. Right now I can't select itself, so if I'm clicking on the model, it has to select the reference model. I don't want to add anything else. Now it's time to go back and select the original reference model, change the smile value, and as you see, because the skin wrap modifier was used, the modifier forcing the new mesh to follow the changes of the underlying mesh. And now I'm selecting the final model, and the trick is I'm just right clicking and converting it back to an editable poly, so I don't have the smile anymore. I can drag it away, delete the reference, I don't need that, select this guy and pull it back in the line. So we have now level 1 smile left and level 2 smile left. And because we are just lazy, we can select the original, go to the Morpher, open up a new channel, and instead of walking down and pick each morph target that way, I can press a right click, pick from scene, and picking level 1, and right click again, pick from scene, and picking level 2. So let me check Alt Q isolate, look on the side of the face and starting. So 50, and then it is reaching out for the final level of smile. Okay, I know it is a little bit ugly to create a mirrored version of the model this way, so it's not the easiest way. But if you don't want to do it manually with the vertices, if you don't want to repair, sometimes you have to use this little bit weird method to make a mirrored version of the mesh. The reason is because you can't use symmetry modifier. You can't use just a mirror, because that will alter the mesh. The skin wrap is not altering the mesh. The skin wrap is just picking up the changes of the shape and not recognizing that you have the vertices flipped over of the previous mirror. Okay, so that's why we are using the skin wrap. Okay, so what we have here is an independent progressive morph for the smile, and it's time to move to the eyes. Okay, so we just have to recognize that there's still a lot of things to do, of course. So let me select the original. I will take these guys, move them over. And sometimes it's a little bit easier if you just hiding away parts. So if you don't like that many meshes on your screen, you can also do a simplification. So for example, you can select polygon levels, select this, and Control I to invert your selection, and walk down here, and you will find something that's called Hide Selected. And voila, we have these hidden. Okay, so select another mesh, go polygon, select the top, and hide selected. Oh, sorry, invert, Control I, and hide selected. Okay, you can do it right at the beginning. So if you're disturbed by this, you can select this mesh, and right at the beginning, you can make this hide selection to make your life a little bit easier. So right now, I will do this because we are focusing on the eye. Select the head, Control I, invert selection, hide selected. And now I will make a copy of this head. And sorry, holding down Shift. Right, and the head will be base instead of base. It will be eyebrow or eyelash up. Okay, and which side? Right side. So with an underscore and right. Okay. Eyelash up. It's up to you, so you can just please use as short as possible. If you remember, if you can memorize that, that's the best. So I don't think eye up. Okay, so that would be eye up. For me, it's probably a little bit easier to read now. Alright, let me go to vertex level, and what you can do is the same thing. We can use freeform, we can use shift, but here the eye is a little bit different. So when you're dragging this, you have to be careful with how you stretch the mesh, because you need to keep a volume. Alright, so this is usually what happens. You're pulling down the eyelid, sorry. You're pulling down the eyelid, but it's just too much, and it flattens out here. So that's not the best way. If you press F3, you can see that it's thinning out. So keep that in mind and try to keep the volume. Try to keep the volume up as it's really covering, really wrapping around the eyeball. Okay, let me pull this back. Keep an intersection. Okay, right. I'm using the iris to make it center. Yes, we need to modify these as well. Okay, let me keep a bigger distance, and that way it can help me to stretch these polygons a bit. Okay, it's not bad. It's good as a mid option, so probably here a bit more. Okay, that's right. So eye up R, leaving the tool, going back to the original Morpher, and second channel, let me zero this out, and empty, right click, pick from scene, pick this guy, and check if it works or not. Okay, it's not bad. Now before we are jumping and making this mirror and everything, it's the best thing if you are adding the bottom part as well, because you want to make sure that this is actually closing. Alright, some folks like to make the blink as one model, but it's not that good for acting. So when you want to create a figure or rolling eyes, or just pissed up, it's a little bit hard to do it with if you have only a solid blink. So this is why I like to add these separately and also independently on both eyes. So it will add 4 other models for us. Okay, let me leave the channel 0. Okay, now select the other part with the eyes. So shift and drag. Here we go, and the task is to make the bottom working. Okay, shift and pull this up. Okay, we want to pull and lift. Okay, lift. So when you're zooming in, I don't like to change the brush size in this case, but if you want to change the brush size, you can do that by holding the Ctrl and Shift and drag. So that will change the brush size. If you just want to adjust the strength, you can hold Shift, and that is adjusting the hotspot of the brush. Alright, so Ctrl and Shift, usually working fine. And but if you're zooming in, that means you are working on details. If you're zooming out with the mouse, it's fairly easy to do. So yeah, and don't forget, we have to pull this up until it is closest to the center. So we are closing up, and and then we have to test. Of course, if you have some troubles, Ctrl Shift to resize, you can use the relax brush. That helps a lot. So if you have weird distortions in the texture, then you can use the relax and soften brush. Let me pull this up for a little bit more. Oh yeah, a little bit more. That's it. Okay. Alright. So I'm absolutely sure that it won't work so nicely, but we want to test it first. Okay, so I don't want to be too fast on making decisions until I haven't seen it with my own eyes. So let me leave this and use the proper naming. So I up R, copy, and paste, and it will be I down. How creative. Okay, I know. That's right. So going back, Morpher, picking another empty channel here, right click, pick object from scene, and pick this bottom part. And here we go, 100% up and 100% down. And now it's closing, okay? Now here comes the big question. So please keep that in mind, that it is not a final model that is ready to render. So yes, we have the skin, but we are not worried about the skin now, but we are worried about a turbo smooth. Because the turbo smooth, when a turbo smooth is applied, the mesh is a little bit tighter, okay? So what you see here, the gap what you see here, once you apply the turbo smooth, it will be a little bit more. So the more will become visible through this tiny gap. So I like to use this, and now we can go back up, and I think it is already stretched out quite significantly. So maybe I should drag these corners a little bit higher. But other than that, I think the top eyelid should be closed a little bit more. So instead of that, let me select this guy, vertex, and go with the shift and still try to close it a bit more, even more. If you have a little overlap, that's not bad at all. Okay, so that's not bad at all. If there is a slight overlap, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, now here comes the next step. I'm going back on the morph target here, and we have two morph targets actually modified. So instead of selecting them, all of them, I can make it a little bit faster when I'm clicking on the on this morpher, zeroing out things, and reload all morph targets. So reload all, and now I'm walking back up and changing the values back to 100, and as you see now it is force closed. Okay, so it's fully closed. Now this is the situation, this is the moment when you are just making the decision, okay, now we can mirror these, for example, for now. If we want, we can give a try to mirror with the mirror tool. I'm not sure it will work, but why not? So reference is already picked. Let me go flip symmetry, and hey, here we are. It was working like a charm for the eyes. Okay, it had troubles with the mouth, but for the eyes it was working well. So let me shift and drag and flip symmetry, and this is also working well. The only thing you have to take care of is if you are working along or quite close to the symmetry, it can create some issues. So if you want to mirror something, please make sure that these edges are not changing, you're not moving them horizontally. Okay, let me quickly demonstrate this. So let me drag this guy and let me make a change here. So if I'm just lifting this up, that's usually not a problem. But if I'm twisting it over like this and try to use the mirror, this is what happens. So it can mirror the eye, but it can't mirror here this front section. Okay, so let me delete this. And so practically that's it. You can add way more expressions. I have other videos about this, but the most challenging technical issues are covered here. I hope you had a good smile in the end. Okay, so thank you very much, and see you in your next lesson. Goodbye.